The next morning Russell goes outside to welcome Miss Daria and Lady Ilo. The women ask him if he's been well, which he affirms. Miss Daria calls Russell to the side and tells him to come with her. As they walk through the garden, she mentions that she realizes that he's gone through a lot this week, and he remarks that it's not like that at all. She adds that it took quite a bit of time to search for the medicine that will restore Ilo's lost mana after the incident where they tried to reach his spirit gate. She also mentions that she checked the archives and she found something interesting. Miss Daria mentions that she found out that the villa belonged to the Raymond family in the past. Russell looks down morosely and doesn't say anything. The Flame Tower Master informs him that Ilo had told her that there was a big torrent of water in his heart, and that's why they couldn't reach the door to the spirits. She asks if he feels angry, and if not, if he feels sad. Russell still continues looking at the ground, and he tells her he feels all of that at the same time. Miss Daria tells him that all this reminds her of the first time she saw him in the library. She saw him studying voraciously to develop his magic. She realizes that he was fighting alone now that she thinks about it. She mentions that after giving it much thought, she believes he is a lonely patriarch who is trying to rebuild his family. Miss Daria decides to make him a proposition, so she asks him to take the property. Russell almost loses his mind and asks her what she means. She finally calms his nerves and tells him she's not giving it to him for free. She suggests that he become the Flame Tower's war mage and become the protector of the country. If he does that, he can earn a lot of money from it and buy this property off her hands. Russell breathes a sigh of relief when she explains what she meant. She smiles and asks him if he understands. She cheerfully adds that he doesn't need to struggle alone. That night, Miss Daria, Lady Ilo and Russell go into the woods again for their training. Lady Ilo informs Russell that the last time, she didn't wake up his consciousness while they approached the door of spirits. She informs him that she guided him with her unconsciousness mana, but this time they'll head to the door together. Russell doesn't look so happy to do this again, and he asks her what will happen if she gets hurt again. Ilo cheers him up by mentioning that they brought a lot of medicine, but Russell tells her he'd prefer not to hurt her at all. Ilo just asks him to close his eyes and think of a fire like he did the last time. She tells him she'll wake up his imagination so he's conscious when they get there. Suddenly they reach Russell's subconscious, and our boy is able to see and identify Ilo this time. He looks at his hands and checks out what his pure mana form looks like for the first time. She leads him forward and says the journey will be smooth like the last time until they reach the torrent. As they walk further, they both stop at the edge of the cliff, and Ilo informs him that the torrent is still there. She tells him that it's still hard for them to reach the origin and get to the door of spirits. Russell moves towards the torrent, but Ilo warns him not to get close. As he gets close, he feels a strong rebuttal that pushes him backward, and he screams in pain. Lady Ilo tells him that it's dangerous enough to see and perceive this torrent, and it's worse to try to step into it. The impact of walking towards the torrent allows Russell to perceive what it's made of, and he starts to see thoughts about him successfully graduating the academy, selecting a tower to join, rebuilding his family, and revenging the death of his father. The weight of the thought shocks him, and he learns that they're things dear to his heart. He becomes sad and apologizes because these thoughts aren't something he can get rid of. Suddenly, they hear a voice asking someone how it was to stay with Russell. Russell looks up and detects that it's the voice of the Flame Tower Master, Miss Daria. In the real world, the head maid reports to Miss Daria that Russell was a good person. Meanwhile, in his subconscious world, Russell hears the head maid's voice and figures out that she and the Flame Tower Master must be having a conversation. Miss Daria asks the head maid if she didn't leave his side like she asked her to, and the head maid affirms that. Russell continues to listen to the conversation, and he figures out the point of the week-long training. He recalls Professor Hubert, who has always had his best interest at heart. He recalls his celebration with the workers, where they had cheered for a new family member, referring to him. Another experience that touched him was the head maid's last words to him when she told him that he's a good person. Lastly, he recalls Miss Daria, who told him not to struggle alone since he has people with him. Russell pieces together the whole thing and realizes there's a lesson to be learned from it, which makes tears roll down his eyes. There seems to be only one thing he can do. Even though he realizes that he can't get rid of the torrent, he gets up from his dejected state and says he can jump over the torrent. Russell recalls the training that Miss Daria gave him by the cliff. As he moves towards the edge of the cliff, Lady Ilo tries to stop him because it's dangerous for him to go closer. The pain from the torrent's impact continues to grow, but he continues to walk towards it and tells himself that it's okay. He tells himself that it's okay if he falls because he's not alone. As he takes his first step off the cliff, some fire appears under his foot. Ilo watches in horror from behind and hopes that he survives it. Russell suddenly activates the blink method, and he disappears from the spot and leaves a trail of fire. After Russell uses the blink method, Lady Ilo doesn't see him again, so she looks at the other side to know if he has successfully crossed the cliff. Luckily, Russell appears on the other side in a pool of fire. Lady Ilo tells him that he has really done it, and Russell looks back at her and just smiles, unable to hear her. Behind him, the torrent continues to rage. The lesson here is never to face your fears or deep problems, but to just jump over them. Suddenly, a notification screen appears and notifies him that he has cleared the mission and has received an intermediate grade mana stone as a reward. Russell stands in front of the door, happy that he's been able to cross over. But it seems he doesn't know what to do next. Out of nowhere, he hears Elo's voice in his mind, and she tells him to go to the door of the light in front of him. Her voice surprises him, and he wonders how he's able to hear her. Lady Elo informs him that they can still communicate with each other because their manas are still connected. Another screen pops up and shows Russell that his new mission is to contract with a spirit. He's told to summon a spirit according to the Elo's explanation and form a contract with the spirit. Lady Elo asks him to put his hand into the door, and he does that. After he puts his hands in, he asks her what happens now because he doesn't feel anything. She tells him that it's now up to the spirits to decide. She adds that no one knows what will happen, so Russell continues to hold out his hand into the door and wait for something to happen. Elo says that no one knows what kind of spirit will come. It's also possible that he might not get chosen, so Lady Elo reminds him to hold out his hand and just wait. Meanwhile, in the real world, Miss Daria watches Russell while he's in the trance. Lady Elo tells Russell that all they can do is wait. Russell remembers the spirit of the dragon he met, and he tries to communicate with the spirit by speaking in his heart. He says to the spirit that it's okay if it doesn't come if it's too hard to do so. He adds that he won't be upset because of that. Suddenly, a large red dragon appears around him on a magic circle. When Russell notices the dragon, he communicates the fact that he's thankful for all that has happened leading up to this moment. The dragon moves closer and touches his hands, and they sign a contract. Suddenly, they're all pulled out of the world, and Russell jolts back to reality. He opens his eyes and wonders what happened. When he fully opens his eyes, he's surprised to see a miniature red dragon on his laps. The little dragon growls in a cute way, and our boy wonders if this is how spirits look. Lady Elo and Miss Daria laugh nearby. Elo congratulates him, and Miss Daria informs him that there's something else to also celebrate. Russell wonders what she's talking about and figures it out when he looks at his chest. Once he looks at his chest, he suddenly realizes that he's reached the fourth circle. Meanwhile, the cute red dragon continues to roar. Suddenly, another screen pops up and notifies our boy that he has awakened new knowledge with the spirit summoning and has reached the fourth circle. He's told he will receive unknown extra rewards. Russell reads the text and wonders what the extra rewards could be. While he's thinking, the little red dragon roars again, trying to catch his attention, and flies upwards. The dragon jumps on his head and cuddles into his hair. The little dragon starts to bite his hair and continues to roar. Elo comes to play with the dragon, and she mentions that she doesn't think it's a normal spirit. She asks him if he'll give him a fitting name. She tells him that naming him would complete the contract. Miss Daria affirms her words and tells Russell to give him a good name. Russell stares at the little dragon and tries to figure out a name. He mentions that it's red. Because it's red, he suggests to name him Bacon, and the ladies open their mouths in shock. Russell realizes his dark humor and laughs. Our boy thinks again and asks what they think about the name Pepper. The little dragon makes a cute roaring noise, and it seems he likes it. Elo fawns over Pepper and says it's a cute name, and Miss Daria says it's not bad. Russell thinks to himself that Pepper would be short for pepperoni, but he doesn't tell them that. Miss Daria suggests that they go celebrate, and they can start the real special training tomorrow. Russell continues to play with Pepper, and he says he's looking forward to the training. He continues to play with Pepper, who continues to test his vocal cords with an adorable growl, and Russell tells Pepper it's nice to meet him. A month later, we return back to the academy. In front of the gate, all the professors line up to receive some important guests on the day where the towers finally choose students. One of the professors says he wonders how many graduates will be chosen this year. Another teacher close by mentions that it's basically already decided. While they talk, an announcement is made that the kingdom's White Tower's judge has arrived. The judge arrives with one of the students, and the teacher that was talking mentions that each tower had picked out individuals to train all semester. Shortly after, the kingdom's Yellow Tower's judge arrives with the candidate they had been training all semester. Moments later, the kingdom's Spear Tower's judge arrives with a female student they've been training. The professors continue to gossip, and one other professor mentions that they need to do something more for these special students that have been shortlisted, and they all agree. When they notice Hubert frowning at them, they quickly change their discussion and say they need to do something special for everyone in the school, and not a few. Hubert glares at them, and he asks how they can call these children their students if they only prefer a few talented students. While they talk, another announcement is made that the kingdom's Flame Tower's judge has arrived. The students standing nearby are scared because the Flame Tower is one of the most prominent towers in the kingdom. Unlike what they all expected, a different person named Vermilion Olsen steps out of the Flame Tower's coach. Professor Hubert looks at Vermilion and wonders why he's here. Vermilion looks pretty tough, and he looks around to look for Russel. When he doesn't find him, he mentions that it seems that he's not here yet. Professor Hubert becomes worried that it would seem that Miss Daria doesn't plan to choose Russel, because she sent Vermilion as the judge. Meanwhile, someone teleports across the sky using fire magic. It turns out to be Russel, who is rushing to get to the ceremony early. Vermilion notices the strange presence and looks upwards to know who it is. Russel eventually lands nearby and lets out a sigh of relief. He realizes he was almost late but is glad that he made it in the nick of time. Russel's gaze meets with Vermilion and he's shocked to see him here. Vermilion just stares at him absently, as if he doesn't know him. Vermilion turns around and walks towards the academy and goes past the line of teachers. He smirks in an evil manner and tells himself that it's going to be fun to enjoy breaking Russel. In a flashback to when Russel decided to leave Maldiva for the academy, he thanks Miss Daria, Lady Ilo, and the head maid for all they've done for him. He wishes Lady Ilo safe travels as she heads back to her hometown, and she thanks him for his goodwill. Before he leaves a message for the head maid. He informs her that he'll return as the owner of the property, and he asked her to manage the place well for him in the meantime. The head maid just laughs and says she hopes it ends up as he expects. He thanks them for all they did for him in the short time they spent together. Miss Daria tells him she has one request for him on his way back. She hands him a sealed envelope and tells him to deliver the letter to Hubert for her. Russel receives the letter and promises to deliver the letter as she requested. She thanks him, but he notices she doesn't look too well. He wonders what the content of the letter is and why she seems down. In the present time, Russel and the professor sit down in his office. Russel gives him the letter, and Professor Hubert mentions that it's a relief that he's arrived at the right time. The professor reads the letter and tells him that the only issue is that it would be hard for him to help out during this election. He covers up the content of the letter and explains that something that he has to do quickly came up. Russel smiles and says that it's fine. Before he leaves, Professor Hubert gives him a piece of advice that could prove useful. He informs Russel not to take Brother Olsen lightly because he can be a force to be reckoned with. The professor tells him that he cannot afford to try his best. He must be the best. He adds that he's sure that Russel can do it and pats his shoulder. Russel smiles at him and tells him not to worry. Suddenly the screen notifies our boy that his new mission is the tower selection. His mission is to show an overwhelming difference in levels and receive the acknowledgement of the 10 selection judges. Shortly after, the first round of the selection begins. All the students sit in front of a professor to write a preliminary written exam. Russel considers that the written exam isn't hard. He recalls that he flunked this exam in his previous life, so it isn't so much of a challenge to him now. He considers the fact that there is something else to be worried about. The major thing to be worried about is the letter that Professor Hubert received. From his previous life, he recalls that after the professor received the letter, his trips became more frequent, so frequent that he won't be able to teach his academy classes. Shortly after that, Professor Hubert would pass away the year he gets his sabbatical. After he finishes the exam, he steps outside. He thinks to himself that he doesn't know what exactly happened to Professor Hubert in his past life. He believes his death occurred due to a really dangerous task. He mentions that Professor Hubert must have passed from a really dangerous task that is left to a high-ranking mage in the Flame Tower. After the results are collated, Russel Raymond is announced as the student with the top score in the written exam. Some of the students are shocked he got the top score. Others think it's incredible. Some say he studied well, and others feel jealous. Meanwhile, Russel's mind is not even focused on the selection process. He thinks about the death of the professors that's about to begin, and he wonders if he's able to stop it. Shortly after, the second stage of the selection process is announced, and the students are told that the interview test will begin shortly. The students all sit down somewhere, and they're told to only come in when their name is called. After some students are interviewed, Russel is called. He steps into the interview hall and sees his professors sitting by his left and the 10 judges right in front of him. He tells himself that the evidence that he can change things is right before his eyes. Russel considers that he doesn't recall seeing Brother Olsen come to the selection process as a judge in his previous life. The fact that he's here means he has changed the past, and that means he can join the Flame Tower and stop the deaths of the professors. To do that, Russel realizes that he needs to be acknowledged by the judges. Meanwhile, Vermilion Olsen stares at him with contempt in his eyes. The professors announce the rule and tell him that the judges will ask him a question, and he has to respond shortly and verbally. The White Tower judge decides that they start right way, so she reads out her first question about a formula created by the mage Orugan Gong 3 years ago. A series of questions are thrown at our boy, and he answers them well and articulately. The hardest part of the interview questions is a hidden second task. Shortly after, the seat where the judges are starts to shine bright as they release bursts of mana to see if he can stay composed to address their questions as they release the mana. It's customary to the selection process, and Russel tells himself that he'd have to endure the mana exertion of the selection judges. He remembers that he always failed this part in his previous life, and he would profusely cough until he almost passed out. In the present time, he confidently endures the mana subjection and continues to answer their questions. The Yellow Tower judge mentions that Russel is incredible because his expression doesn't change despite the swirling mana storm. Meanwhile, Vermilion Olsen doesn't seem impressed. Brother Olsen smirks and mentions that this isn't much of a mana storm. He suddenly amplifies the intensity to know if Russel will be able to bear it when it gets stronger. Russel notices the strange change in the mana intensity, and it becomes harder to withstand its effect. Olsen just smirks, and the effect of the mana storm starts to affect the guards who are standing behind the judges. The Yellow Tower judge looks at Olsen, and he confirms that he's really a crazy tiger. The Yellow Tower judge tells himself that the candidate could die if this continues. Russel starts to find it a bit harder to cope, but he doesn't budge. He continues to look right at the judge as he expects their next question. The Spear Tower judge is shocked to see that Russel is enduring this barrage of mana. He notices that even the newly appointed professors assigned to the examination are having a hard time enduring the intense mana storm. The Spear Tower judge considers that Russel is surely a desirable genius. Suddenly, the system brings up a notification that Russel has managed to get the acknowledgement of 9 judges out of 10. Olsen continues the intensity, but he is surprised to see that Russel is enduring it. He decides to increase the intensity a little bit more to know if our boy will be able to survive. Russel starts to get pretty uncomfortable, but he manages to maintain his position. Vermilion Olsen doesn't back down and keeps increasing the intensity of the mana storm. Suddenly, the Spear Tower judge places a hand on Olsen's shoulder and informs him that they have other interviews to perform, so he needs to stop. Olsen hisses at the Spear Tower judge's comment, but he decides to stop. Olsen retorts that it's such a shame because it was about to get fun. Meanwhile, Russel stands resolute, but his clasped hands start to shake behind him. Meanwhile, the new professors, who have been sweating profusely, rejoice that they survived the mana storm. One of the judges commends our boy that he did well and informs him that he can leave. They ask the next person to come in, and Russel heads out of the room. Our boy collapses on the waiting chair after the intense exam. He heaves a sigh and says within himself that he thought he was going to pass out. Suddenly, a notice screen pops up. The screen tells him that he has gained the acknowledgement of 9 selection judges out of 10. Russel smiles uncomfortably when he realizes that the system is trying to tell him this isn't enough, and he needs one more to pass the mission. He laughs within himself and says Olsen isn't an easy target. After the second test, the judges from the towers walk through the hall, and they talk about Russel Raymond. The Spear Tower judge mentions that Russel is the student that the Fire Tower Master has been keeping an eye on, which means he's off limits for them. The Yellow Tower Master mentions that he's a student that anyone would want on their side, and it's a pity that he's already taken. Vermilion Olsen doesn't say a word and just walks in front of them. The White Tower judge cheerfully asks Olsen when he's going to start to train Russel as the youngest Flame Tower disciple, but she's met with some rebuttal. Olsen angrily turns back and asks her who told her the boy is going to be his junior. The White Tower judge realizes she's stepped on a nerve, so she quickly tries to rephrase what she said. The other judges just watch uncomfortably, and Olsen angrily turns away from them. They wonder why he's so uptight. Olsen recalls a time when he had taken some newbies that just got enrolled into the Flame Tower into the field to fight. In the flashback, one of the newbies doesn't do a great job at maintaining the barrier while some swordsmen attack them. The enemy strikes their barrier and cracks it. The knights kick down the younger mages and stab them to death. That night, Olsen eventually takes out all their enemies, but the younger ones don't survive the ambushment. As he stands amidst the dead bodies, tears roll down his eyes as he mourns their deaths. In the present day, he remembers that if there is one weakling among them that falls, everyone falls. It seems this is why he's so hard on Russel. Shortly after, the third round of the screening test begins, and they all gather outside. The organizers announce to the participants that their next test is something like a treasure hunt of sorts. The man tells them that they'll have to go into the lush Walker Hill forest, and they'd have to find green mana stones. He announces that they will be awarded points based on the number of Man W stones they can find and the order in which they return. Russel reasons that some of the other guys will be desperate enough to try to steal other people's mana stones, so he has to be careful. They're told to line up so they can be released into the forest. While they're forming a line, a notification screen appears before Russel again and tells him that the last part of the mission is winning Olsen's approval. He looks at the screen blankly, and he wonders if senior disciple Olsen will even acknowledge him at all. He considers how he's been treating him since the screening began, and he wonders if Olsen will still approve him if he clears the third round. While he's still thinking, he hears the announcement to start searching. Russel joins the other boys and they scurry into the woods to find the green stones. As the boys rush into the woods to find the stones, our boy decides that there's one thing he can do to find the stones faster. Moments later, Russel uses some fire magic and begins to summon Pepper. Pepper soon appears in his arms, and Russel tells him it's been a while. He apologizes for keeping him away and explains that he couldn't use magic at school. Pepper seems quite excited to see him and playfully roars like he always does. Russel asks Pepper if he can help him and summons his compartment to bring a red mana stone. He tells Pepper he needs him to help find a stone that looks like this. He moves the stone closer to the spirit, and Pepper sniffs it. Pepper picks up the scent of the mana stone and flies away when he detects a scent nearby. Russel notices Pepper heading in a direction and excitedly mentions that it seems he's found one. For some time, our boy follows the spirit through the woods as they continue their quest to find the stones. Soon after, they reach a spot where there seems to be a red magic circle. Meanwhile, in another part of the kingdom, some people have a discussion inside a magic material store. A man in a cloak who appears to be a flame tower guardian questions the store owner and asks him where the mage he traded with went. The man, who looks quite confused, tells him that he doesn't know, and all he did was to sell him some raw materials for a ritual. The interrogator changes his voice and asks him if he knows the truth about the ritual he speaks of. He asks him if he knows that the mage came to buy those materials for a pagan spell. The man is shocked to hear that his customer had bought materials for a pagan spell. The guardian pushes him roughly to get him to talk. He tells the man that aiding a cult is the same as treason against the kingdom, and the man realizes he's in a lot of trouble. The guardian, who is now very angry, asks one more time if he knows where the mage went. The man stammers and repeats that he doesn't really know where the man went. He goes on to say that all that he heard was that a snarly woman who kills people by burning them had taken a disciple, and this mage they're looking for has gone to check it out. In a flashback, this dangerous mage watches as Miss Dadia speaks to Russel in Maldiva. The mage watches as Russel receives a cape of the Flame Tower Guardians from the Flame Tower Master. The Guardian lets go of the man and thinks to himself that the person these people from the cult have a grudge with is no one else but his teacher. He uncovers his face, and it's clear that it's Professor Hubert. The professor rushes outside, and he tells himself that Russel is in danger. Professor Hubert's body is consumed by fire, and he runs from the place using teleportation magic, running to warn the academy about how dangerous the screening test is. Meanwhile, one of the students looks around and curses when he can't find any of the mana stones. He complains that he's unable to use light magic because he doesn't want to attract the attention of other contestants and become their target. As the guys walk further into the woods, he notices a dark, strange figure. The boy stops when he sees the moving figure and he exclaims. The boy sends a wind arrow at the strange figure, but nothing happens. The attack doesn't seem to do any damage. The boy notices that it looks like a man, so he tells the person that he startled him. The candidate keeps watching the strange figure, and he wonders if he's also a candidate. When he doesn't get a response, he decides to turn around because he thinks he's dead. He wonders whether to check on him, but he decides to ignore the man since it's a competition, and it's every man for himself. As he walks away, he gets an idea. He looks back at the strange figure and reasons that this strange guy might just have a stash of mana stones he can take. When he turns back to check out the man's dead body, he doesn't find him there. When he notices the spot is empty, he wonders where the strange figure went. He notices something moving behind him and quickly glances back, and he's shocked by what he sees. A loud scream ripples through the forest, and it's clear the contestant is down. Meanwhile, Russel keeps following Pepper around to find the mana stones. As they move in, Russel wonders if they've gotten to the middle of the forest. Right in the middle of the field, there's a bag that looks like it's filled with a bunch of green mana stones. Russel comes closer and wonders why the mana stones are in one place when it was supposed to be a treasure hunt. Russel pats Pepper in the head and tells him he did a good job, but he reasons that something seems strange about this place. He notices something else inside the bag and crouches down to see it. It turns out to be a golem's core. Our boy picks up the core and notices that it's broken. As he inspects it, he notices that it looks like it was broken before a golem was even summoned. As he investigates, Pepper seriously growls at something behind him, so he turns behind to see what it is. Suddenly, a series of spikes emerge from the earth and try to impale Russel. The spikes keep coming out of earth and keep advancing to where our boy is crouched. Russel notices the spike and wonders what the heck is going on. The spikes from the earth start rapidly moving forward and extend higher, so Russel quickly activates his wizard body aura and jumps out of the way. As he jumps out of the way, he sees a different attack with light magic, and Russel wonders how his attacker is quickly able to switch magic like that. Balls of light float in the sky and shoot dangerous beams to the ground. The balls keep shooting beams at our boy, but he manages to dodge each attack because he's quick on his feet when he uses his magic aura. As the attack continues, Russel figures out that he's not being attacked by one person. Suddenly, some magic spears are fired at him while he's not looking, but luckily Pepper spots them. Pepper quickly releases some fire out of his mouth and burns the spears before it reaches Russel. Russel looks behind and realizes Pepper had deflected the attack, so he commends him for doing a good job. Our boy quickly summons his firebolt. He shoots bolts of fire through the light balls and breaks them. The explosion from the impact is quite great, and it causes smoke to break out in the surroundings. Russel tries to peer through the smoke, and he wonders why he's being attacked. Even though the attacks have suddenly stopped and there's a moment of silence, Russel still maintains his firebolt. When the smoke clears, Russel sees the 3 mages he's been fighting against hiding in the bushes. When he looks closely, he recognizes them as the honor students that have been selected by the towers. Beside another bush, the White Tower honor student, who's been using light magic, hides there. Russel also notices the Spear Tower honor student, and he asks them why they're using cowardly tactics like this. The Yellow Tower honor student tells him to shut him and asks him how a bastard like him was able to discover the Mana Stone first. The guy reasons that he's sure that they're the only ones who knew about the Mana Stone's location. When he looks closer at Russel, he notices Pepper behind him, so he realizes he has a spirit with him. The Spear Tower honor student also notices the spirit, and she proclaims that she understands how he found the Mana Stone so quickly. The White Tower honor student also notices and wonders how Russel had managed to hide this level of skill that allows him to contract with a spirit from them. Russel just laughs at their words and asks them what's so great about finding the Mana Stone so quickly. He adds that they make it seem as if he shouldn't have found it. Russel finally tells them that something comes to his mind as he thinks of this scenario. He informs them that he knows that they made a secret deal with some of the professors to get them to put all the Mana Stones in one place where only they would know. The Yellow honor student doesn't say anything, but he only thinks to himself that Russel is a quick thinker. Our boy says that he doesn't have the intention of getting involved in their secret deal, but he tells them to get out of his way. The Yellow Tower honor student gets angry at his words, so he activates his aura and rushes towards him. As the guy rushes towards him, Russel suddenly disappears and appears behind him. He smiles and whispers into his ears that they'll regret it if they don't let him go ahead, shocking the guy. The Spear Tower honor student also notices it and is shocked. The White Tower honor student opens his mouth wide as he realizes that Russel just used the blink teleportation magic. While they're still at it, Pepper begins to growl at something that seems to be hidden inside the woods. Russel notices this and asks him what's wrong. He quickly realizes that they're not alone, so he looks into the woods to investigate what's wrong. Russel notices that the trees are moving. He turns toward the Yellow Tower student and asks him if the professors who are helping them told them that they would also destroy the golem core that he found in the bag. The Yellow Tower honor student tells him that they didn't. The other students walk forward, and they mention that they also thought it was strange that a broken golem core was in the bag. Russel suddenly unhands the other guy when he realizes there's some trouble brewing. He quickly summons a firebolt when he hears some noise coming from the forest. He focuses away from them and looks at the forest and says that something is coming. The birds in the forest also begin to fly away in response to whatever is disturbing the peace. Inside the woods, some ferocious and dark-looking monsters with green eyes rush towards the boys. When Russel spots them, he exclaims and mentions that they're the undead. The Spear Tower honor students ask how the undead got into the testing area, and the rest of them look scared. The Yellow Tower honor student suddenly freezes due to fear, and he tells himself that he needs to run away. As he turns to the side to make a run for it, he finds out that there is nowhere to go. He stops in his tracks, and a look of despair develops across his face. The undead form a large circle around them, and there's nowhere to run. Suddenly, Russel creates a large firewall around them while Pepper goes to fight off some of the beasts. The Yellow Tower honor student sees the firewall and realizes that Russel is using fourth circle magic, which none of them have attained. Russel looks at them and tells each of them to pick a direction to face and fight the monsters that manage to break through the walls. The students just stare at him speechless, crippled by fear. Our boy shouts at them and tells them to answer him because they're running out of time. They all stammer and give an answer, as they realize that they're the ones who were ambushed when they thought they were the ones setting an ambush for him. The Yellow Tower honor student says to himself that it's hard to think that they were picking a fight with someone like him. If they had gone ahead, something really bad would have happened. While he thinks, an undead manages to break through the wall in his direction. As the undead cross the wall, they're met with fire arrows that pierce into them due to Russel's quick reaction. Russel tells them that the firewall is only a temporary measure, and they need to find the sorcerer who summoned the undead beasts.